All right, everyone. Welcome. I had to make sure the stream was actually live. Guys, welcome to this special of Pleb Underground. We are going to dive into the whole Swan allegation thing. I've got Sir Ulric, right, the new creator on the Pleb Underground, and I've got fellow Bitcoiner and Pleb friend to the show, Humble Bitcoiner, also joining us. And I believe that Walton may also join us a little bit later. But right now, let's get started. Let me bring on the guests, and we are going to dive into the allegations, and we're going to start to have a chat and see where this takes us, because this is definitely something that a lot of us talk about. Maybe we don't see so much engagement on Twitter about it because maybe some people are afraid, who knows? But it's good that we have these conversations. There's been quite a few spaces recently discussing this, and yeah, figured it was important that we do this. So without further ado, let me bring on Humble and Sir Ulric.
What's up?
Hey, guys.
Hi.
Welcome. Welcome. All right, so just to let all the viewers know, we were supposed to be streaming on Twitter, but unfortunately, I suck, and I don't have a premium subscription for Pleb Underground because we're Pleb Underground, and it won't let us stream there. But this is all on YouTube. Anyways, I guess I gotta fix that if we're gonna stream to Twitter. Damn it, they used to allow this. Anyways, okay. This is not a show about Pleb Underground's problems with streaming. This is a show about the Swan discussion. So there is a lot of information. If I'm not mistaken, the allegations, Humble, was like 50 pages or something like that, describing all. It was like 7 or 9 points. So I think the best thing for us to do is we're going to start off right away. Introduce yourselves, a little bit about yourselves, and then we'll start diving into the points. Okay, Humble, you go first.
Oh, fun. All right. I am a humble warrior. Didn't know we were going to do intro. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to make it embarrassing. This is part of the show.
Thank you for throwing that on me. That's awesome.
Just like Space is Humble, but in person, kind of.
All right. So I'm going to make it really hard for you guys then. What else should I describe? Should I make it like a 5-minute long thing so you guys have to fill the time and do the same? Explain your favorite food and your color. And all right, now. So humble Bitcoiner, humble warrior. Yeah, we're here to discuss this this whole event with Swan. And about me, I have a company called The Orange Habit. That is a Bitcoin clothing company. I've got several brands. I've got Sovereignty and Nikki Nakamoto, as well as Lil B. So that is what I am doing in the Bitcoin space. I accept Bitcoin as well. It's kind of my my thing. So, and yeah, I will pass that off. Made it easy for you guys. You'll do better because you weren't first. So go for it.
Yeah. All right. Well, my name is Ulrich. Some people think that my first name is Sir, but it's not. I just wanted to go off of Sir Ulrich von Liechtenstein, like Bitcoin Shooter said in the chat. So yeah, I'm Ulrich. I do video content for the Pleb Underground. I also have my own podcast on CoinBeast. Some of y'all know me as a former Swan. Corey used to make me do this for pictures, but then the Swan halving happened, and here I am. So happy to be here with the Pleb Underground, doing Down with the Underground. Just had a video release today. Make sure you check it out. Bitcoin 1, starting with the fundamentals of why money is a problem. Share with your loved ones. Share with your normie friends, with your no-coiner friends. And happy to do this Pleb Underground live with my boy Phil.
Absolutely awesome. All right, so I guess maybe before we dive into it, do we want to talk about maybe our experience? No, you know what? Forget it. No experience first. We'll go with the experience stuff after. Just because I have obviously experience, with Swan from podcasting. Sir Ulrich, you have experience through making content, and Humble, you have as well an experience through hosting spaces. So it's very interesting, these 3 different types of perspectives that are all coming together to discuss this. Okay, so I guess without further ado, Humble, do we want to start off and dive into the points about the Swan allegation towards, I believe it's Proton management?
That is correct. Yeah. Can you guys hear me okay? I turned my volume down to kind of reduce some of that. Okay.
No, you are coming in loud.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's kind of hard in this room. It's just a big fishbowl. So what we had talked about prior to coming on was just kind of giving a summary. I entered, everyone knows I love AI. So I kind of entered some information in there and it spit back out some points to address. So I'm going to read through those because we're not going to be reading through 50 pages. So here we go. All right. So the bullet points of the Swan Bitcoin versus Proton Management et al. Case. Plaintiffs and defendants. Plaintiff is Swan Bitcoin, financial services firm focused on Bitcoin. Defendants, former Swan employees, including Michael Holmes, which is the former head of business development, Raphael Zugari, and I will butcher the names, I'm sorry, former chief investment officer who went on to establish Proton Management Limited. There are others that are involved, but these are the ones that were pulled out. Allegations against the defendants: theft of trade secrets. Swan alleges that Holmes, Zagari, and other former employees stole proprietary software and confidential information from Swan. This includes a dashboard for tracking Bitcoin mining metrics and proprietary techniques to optimize mining operations. The conspiracy and rain and hellfire scheme. Swan claims that the defendants conspired to usurp Swan's mining operations, describing the plan as rain and hellfire. The goal, according to Swan, was to irreparably harm its competitive position by diverting its key mining assets and personnel to Proton. And guys, I did put these notes. I updated the Telegram because the notes I had sent you prior were a little different. Okay. So, yeah. All right, Tether's involvement. Actually, hang on a second. Did I just go through that in proprietary software? No, I lost my train of thought. See, there we go. We got that conspiracy, we got that mass resignation. That's where we are. Okay. Then there was a mass resignation in early August 2024. Several Swan executives, including Holmes and Zaguri, resigned simultaneously. Swan claims these resignations were orchestrated to weaken the company internally. And in this case, many are aware, if you're not, there is a little bit of Tether's involvement. So we'll go on to that. There was a switch in support to Proton. So after the mass resignation of Swan's employees, Tether, a major funding partner of Swan's mining venture, switched its support from Swan to Proton Management. Swan alleges that Tether provided legal cover to facilitate the shift in mining operations to Proton. Then there is a notice of event of default. Tether issued a notice of event of default against Swan for breaching the 2040. And in this too, it's interesting because it says 2040, but then it also says 2140. My understanding is 2040, but anyways, just putting that out there. You may hear both. For breaching the 2040 Energy Shareholders Agreement, primarily due to Swan's inability to maintain the personnel necessary for continuing its mining business. This notice was allegedly used as justification for switching their support to Proton. The establishment of Proton Management, founding and role. So after their resignation, Holmes and Zaguri founded Proton Management Limited. Proton positioned itself as a competitor to Swan, specifically targeting the Bitcoin mining operations that Swan had previously conducted. Then there's use of stolen information. Swan accuses Proton of using the stolen software and proprietary information to replicate Swan's mining business, which had been specifically tailored for managing Bitcoin mining operations effectively. And now the impact on Swan Bitcoin. We've got one more to go after this. Shutdown of mining operations due to the mass resignation, the alleged theft, and Tether's shift in support. Swan announced a shutdown of its mining operations. This in turn led to Swan abandoning its planned IPO and reducing staff significantly, which we all are aware of. Cancellation of Pacific Bitcoin Festival. So following the operational challenges, Swan also canceled its the Pacific Bitcoin Festival, citing the need to focus on core business operations, understandably so, after staff reductions and mining setbacks. So the legal demands: injunction and return of stolen property. Swan is seeking an injunction against the defendants to prevent them from using the stolen property information, proprietary information, sorry. The company also demands the return of all stolen materials and seeks monetary damages. And the claims against Tether while not a direct defendant in the case, that's notable. We'll talk about that. Tether's involvement is highlighted throughout the lawsuit. Swan accuses Tether of being complicit in facilitating the transition of mining operations from Swan to Proton, essentially enabling the alleged scheme. I can do the summary, but I think, that's good.
No, this is perfect. And actually, we have a question here from Tora Pottle, and I think Ulrich, you might be able to help with this one here. He's asking, wasn't staff cut in July though, the month prior? So I think that there's two different staff groups that we're talking about here, but I don't know if you could shed some light on it. You're muted, by the way.
But thank you very much. Yeah. But wait, there's more. Yes, exactly. And it's funny. No, I saw that message and I replied in chat. By the way, people who are in chat, if you guys want to give feedback, commentary, opinions, we're live. This is the Pleb Underground. This is a community. We're working together, try to dig into what the hell is going on. But Torp is right. Yeah, the staff was cut in July, primarily, and like the Humble summary said, getting back to core business, core business stacks, if you will, the things that Swan claimed were actually profitable. And of course, pushing out social media content, it's not necessarily a profitable venture. Marketing is always the first thing that kind of goes when the money goes. So yeah, we were cut, like half the company was cut in July, but there were still people that were left on, and those people, they were wanting to focus on the mining business. The people that conspired allegedly against the Swan brand were people that were left on. But you could say that they were discovering some issues with their funding from Tether. Again, if these allegations are true, and Tether is conspiring against Swan, and therefore is pulling back from the funding that Swan is expecting, then Swan is discovering this in late July. It's like, okay, we can't pay all these people. And as time and events materialize, Swan may or allegedly discovers why Tether was pulling out in the first place, and allegedly it would be the conspiratorial actions with the new founded Proton management. So I feel like those kind of events, when I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh, there could be a connection. Where it's like it's just a long lead of Swan actually discovering what was happening behind the curtains in their own backyard, if you will.
So I think, and I may be wrong about this, but maybe there's a suggestion that obviously there was a problem significantly beforehand, and or there was an issue beforehand, and as a result, that was kind of the first way to mitigate that, right? Was to cut out quote unquote non-essential staff.
Yeah. I mean, from what I understood, it sounded like the first initial rumors was Tether did not want the revenue or the funding coming from them to be used in other stacks that weren't necessarily profitable. So reinvesting, you're receiving money for this, or at least they think it's for this, and really you're applying it to those other categories. And so Tether would allegedly say, no go, we're not doing that. So therefore, since you are applying this money in this way, you're no longer receiving it. And Swan had to make adjustments. So that was like the first rumor I heard. How does this apply to this case? Maybe that was their rationale for pulling back, when in actuality they were going to do potential business with another entity, namely Proton Management. But it's more shoulders shrugging than me knowing for certain. I'll tell you, even when they had first announced mining to the company at large, I remember it was like a big town hall and everyone dialed in and no one knew what it was for. And then they announced it like it was, and everyone was shocked. But they announced it, but in a very reserved way. They didn't tell people where the mining was taking place. People were asking, and people like, and Corey is like, no, you really can't ask that. They're like, we're trying to keep this sensitive. We're trying to keep this under wraps. They announced it to us about a week before they announced it on Twitter. So most Swans were not in the know when it came down to the mining operation, at least me. And of course, all I'm doing is making academic videos. So I would be one, and I'm part-time too. I would be one of the last ones to know. But even the full-time people, you know, they were in the dark.
Yeah. Before we continue, we're just going to bring Walton in. He's joining us, so give me a quick second here.
Why is
Walton? You're muted, by the way, Walton.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
Welcome.
How
so
are we
look,
doing?
Good.
So I
just
thought
to catch you up quickly.
In here. I thought I'd just swan in here because you know you just got to swan about. Like that's what you got to do with your time.
Swan about.
You know, black
swan diving
all the time, and you know you can't live life, you know, like tethered to all sorts of you know bad people. Like it's just not cricket, you know.
So here, before we go on and catch Walton up here, we just went through the different points, right, of what the accusations are, and what Ulric was just giving his essentially like his account from his experience and the way that he saw the the sequence of events, right? That we saw that somebody Torip Hoddle had asked a question about people about people being let go in July, and we were just clarifying that it was two different groups of people, right? The people that were let go in July was like marketing staff, quote unquote non-essential staff, and then this quote unquote mass exodus was from the mining group.
It wasn't that mass. Like it was like 8 to 10 people. Yeah.
They make it sound a lot bigger in the filing though.
Yeah, I mean, I not a lot of people were involved in the mining venture. So it's like, you know, you can't, especially if it's like, oh my gosh, like 30 people just up and left. Again, they kept the mining venture very small. Like not a lot of people were involved in it, and the people who were involved in it were independent contractors, kind of like I was. Like there wasn't like, oh, this is a lifelong Swan person. Maybe a couple, like maybe Hoffa was a Swan first, then mining, but he brought in a lot of people, namely what's his name? Alex Holmes. You know, Alex wasn't a Swan until the mining venture came to pass. But we can talk about Alex soon. I have some stories about him.
So here's an interesting comment from Bitcoin George. They hit the mining under different business names. Ownership is 9/10 of the law. And does this go back to Humble? I know you're going to be familiar with this. That this piece of land that was going out to be visited, and this is where Swan and Tether kind of came together for an agreement over this property that supposedly would be a good mining property. I don't know if it already had existing miners. I'm assuming that it did.
Yeah,
I don't know if you remember this.
I do remember reading it.
There's so many pieces to this.
I know, that's the thing. Like I figured, okay, well that's, I just kind of passed on by that. What country was that? It's
talking about Western Australia.
I don't think so.
I think not the Western Australia one.
Is somewhere else.
It was other country. Yeah. Okay.
Tasmania. Australia.
So it's Tasmania, right? Which is an island just south of Australia, but it's part of Australia. As per usual, a non-American based person needs to help with the geography.
Hey, that's Mr.
I showed Tasmania.
You showed up late and you didn't have to introduce yourself, so that's noted. I'll know that next time. We'll show up late.
What do they say? Stay humble, be happy.
It does say Australia in the filing though. So
number 38.
Yeah, line number 38. Australia.
Yeah. So
now I'm gonna look for it.
You're just being a jerk.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, so on line 38.
Yeah.
So on line 38, like it says on June 1st, 23, clips and learn of Dame Bitcoin mining site, DAME. I don't know how you say it, Dame in Spanish or Dame in English. You tell me. But it's in Tasmania from a Swan employee who had invested in 2021. So that was a pre-existing site, and they didn't say which Swan employee, but allegedly they were, they probably put a bug in Corey's ear. Corey is the type of guy, like, people are coming up to him all the time with like ideas. Hey, do this, do that. And some of them stick, some of them don't. But I guess that one kind of stuck, and he probably investigated that evening, clipped and mentioned the company to his friend, defendant Holmes. And this is probably when Holmes came into the picture, because he wasn't initially a Swan. He was just a local buddy. He played USC. He played football at USC, so he's kind of like an LA native. He's done business, probably done very well for himself. So I think through the circles of the upper class in LA, he met Alex Holmes, and Holmes was doing Bitcoin mining already. So I think he wanted to collaborate with him in that regards. And of course, whatever other hash rate he was getting elsewhere around the world.
So speaking of that,
I just wanted to point out, it's
Brazil. Yeah.
No, Brazil. So it's not that this was going on in Brazil, but two of the defendants are from Brazil. And I think that's where that's in my mind. Oh, it's another country. That's where that comes from. Sorry. Just had
a coder and Hoffa, of course. And Hoffa is like, the CIO, and then there was like one coder that was probably
a software engineer
involved, because of he was the one grabbing all the alleged secret code from the GitHub.
Somebody was asking, where does Ocean play into all of this? And I mean, look, so that kind of has to do with essentially on tweets indicating that Swan was pointing their hash at Ocean.
Oh,
I mean, does anybody? I mean, I'm sure somebody has some type of. Go ahead, Walton. Sorry.
They were pointing a chunk of it at,
that's what they claimed.
Ocean, because when they got rugged by Tether, we saw Ocean hash rate like collapse. Yeah,
that's pretty much our evidence.
But who was it? Friend of the show, Mark Goodwin, of course, was telling us about that it was Tether. I think many of us speculated that it was, but I think he had a little bit more information than most. I tweeted a couple of days ago saying that we speculated from when it happened that it was Tether rugging them, but who knew it was an inside job? And Corey liked the tweet, so yeah.
Very interesting.
Inside job. I just think it seems like there's, when like it's been poorly organized. A lot of Swan endeavors seem to reek of mismanagement. I think some people focus when they're directing a company on how do we just get it to an IPO and not really kind of pay maybe enough attention to nurturing a sort of culture where you do have where you don't have this sort of thing happening, right? Like you don't hear about I don't know, a faction of River splitting off. It's about aligning incentives, and if you don't align incentives, then you get people that aren't very happy with their cut.
There's I do admit that there was a time when people were after the Swan halving, and people were looking to get their rebates for the conference tickets, and there's a few people who were complaining because they paid in Bitcoin and got their payment back in dollars. Of course, Bitcoin had, since they were selling those tickets, that Bitcoin had probably gone up 50 to 100%. And so people are like, what the heck, pay me back in Bitcoin. The fine print, of course, we're in a dollar denominated world, and Phil and I, we talked about this offline. What it boiled down to is that T's weren't crossed and I's weren't dotted. Like Walton kind of said, it's like the fine print. Are you handling the details of your company so it makes it seem like that boat is watertight, or are you just trying to race across to Fantasy Island before you sink? And these potential holes come out. It's kind of like, who do you trust? Are you taking into all these nuanced considerations for if this happens, then that, if the if else situations, like with rebates. He obviously brings people into the company that he can't trust as much as he should. But again, I think what has been seen by Swan, over time, it's like when you think about all the hires, a lot of the hires, especially for the education standpoint, there were a lot of people who were brought into under the Swan fold, and it just felt like almost like, the old group NWO in wrestling, where it's like all these guys are joined up and like they're allegedly together, Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash and all these guys from the WCW stuff. And it's like they weren't really like a group. They were just kind of like a loose federation of stars. And no one really remembers them. No one remembers them like other groups in wrestling. So it's kind of weird how that was like tossed in. And I feel like Swan is kind of like that. There are people that have put on Swan jackets that were bigger in their own right, but because they wore a Swan jacket for a moment, you think that it expands the brand. But once they put on that Swan jacket, they didn't really do much for the brand. I mean, I could think about and again, this is me. Maybe I missed something because I'm not following their content all the time. But like Steven Livera, I don't remember him doing anything exceptional for Swan, except he had a podcast and he was hired by Swan. It was an event, and all of a sudden, like, that makes the education better. Maybe he was working in the background. But I'll tell you, I was there for 9 months. I never interacted with him once. I never saw him in the Slack. So, it's just weird how, the loose federation of people, potentially things get slipped through the cracks. And I think this major thing right here with this lawsuit, you have to cover your tracks because, hey, you missed something on who you're bringing in and why you're bringing him in the first place.
Yeah, I think you make some good points. And as you were talking, I was just thinking to myself, and we've like you said, we've talked about this offline. Sometimes and again, I'm not saying that anybody deserves, right, what happens, like, especially in this case, like you can see, right, these people did something that clearly should not be done, right, is obviously not, good business. And right, they did it anyways. And I start to wonder, like, does that have to do with Walton's earlier point, right, about being disgruntled, right, and incentives aligning? And essentially, like, that's, to me, I don't know, like, I feel like this is kind of like a symptom of a larger issue there, right? Something we're possibly not seeing. Sorry, Walton.
They're trying to grow in all directions too fast, right? They didn't build their vertical stack, right? They don't own all their back end and the brokerage, etc., etc. Like, they don't own the custody, and yet they're going to start expanding into like other industries. There are only certain ways in Bitcoin that you can make money, and mining is one of them. Custody is one of them. But like they didn't have a lot of experience in the things. Then you bring in outsiders, but then the outsiders are the people running it. So then this is where
they're like, why do we need these people? And this was actually one of the comments made in the lawsuit, right, that Tether specifically alluded to, right near one of these like redaction points, where they alluded to that, like, Tether specifically said, we can stop Swan in their tracks. So there was something else going on there.
Soon Tether, though, right?
Yeah, I know. Tether's like the elephant in the room. You can't say anything about, and this is what's great, guys. Our podcast is not sponsored by Tether, so we can say whatever the hell we want. But like, so
Tether is a shitcoin.
And I'm picturing the Hillary.gif.
Maybe we should
right?
rename it Pleb Untethered, Phil. What do you think? Pleb Untethered. Yeah.
Oh,
what do you say, guys? Do we do a rename? Maybe it's not a bad name. Just change one word. But yes, anyways, going back to this this whole thing, let's talk about a little bit. And I know none of us are software developers. This was actually something I wanted to say at the beginning of the show, and I completely forgot. Right, like none of us have any legal background or anything like that. Right, we're just a bunch of plebs talking about the situation, and that's it. Okay, it's putting that out there a little bit late in the show. But the reason why I'm explaining this is because we're going to switch a little bit to this BNOC thing, right? This essentially this proprietary software platform that somehow gives them magical hash power purposes. What I wanted to say was none of us are software developers.
Wait, what does
okay?
BNOC mean?
Because unless Ulric is.
Not enough. Not enough to be a legitimate one. BNOC is a Bitcoin network operating center. Walton.
Thank you. That's what they called it. But in terms of some of the claims of the functionality and whatnot, and I think I'm not alone in this because I believe there's other people that share this too. It might be a little bit smoke and mirrors. I'm just saying, in terms of that actual functionality, analytics, like I've worked with a lot of databases and I've troubleshot and installed and configured SQL and all that good stuff. And I got to be honest with you, like reporting software doesn't usually impact the actual underlying hardware in the field that is performing the work. The hardware in the field that performed the work, they then extract that data from there. So anyways, supposedly though, there was like some type of like efficiency engine. I'm just calling a little bit of smoke and mirrors on this. Walton, any thoughts?
I mean, I just don't think that they're a company, and Corey specifically, not known for due diligence. I remember like Corey once volunteered that his due diligence for a company that he was investing in on a privacy matter was Odell likes it. Like if you outsource your critical thinking, or maybe if you don't have any to begin with, then I think you're going to struggle to like not get rugged when you try and build a company above a certain size, because there's just going to be smarter people that can come in and do this sort of thing to you.
That's a good point. Anybody have anything to share on this this BNOC software thing?
I can go to point section 126 at the second half of it. It says BNOC integrates advanced predictive monitoring tools, real-time data analytics, revenue tracking, and automated alert systems. BNOC also provides for sophisticated scenario analysis to model site energy assumptions. Some people know what I do for work. Some people don't. I kind of work with satellites, and that's enough for y'all. But I will say that when I look at this description, a lot of it could be potentially commercial off the shelf, which is COTS, which is no different than you buying, Windows or any sort of software we're using now. It's like, hey, it's already made. You put it in, and it works. It's plug and play. Now, maybe there may be some sort of integration, and that's essentially what big shops like Boeing or Northrop do. They do integration. They're paid by the government to integrate large software products from smaller entities. So when I see this, again, you can scale that engineering process down and say, okay, we have these small apps, these small applications, and the software engineer at Swan potentially integrates them. And the integration may be the secret sauce. When I look at these kind of things, predictive monitoring tools, real-time, predictive and monitoring tools would be based on past performance for a computer. Real-time data analytics, it's like telemetry for a satellite. Hey, what's the status of your system? I just don't see anything, unless they're keeping their secret sauce still secret, which is probably what they should do in a public case. I don't see anything that doesn't signify, hey, this is just an integration product that their local software engineers did, which, by the way, from what I know, they have some very good software engineers. But again, I just feel like it's more integration than ground up design. It doesn't seem like that. It doesn't seem like something that would drive Swan to be like that quote unquote $1 billion company potentially. That's my very elementary take. Like I still am more outside than in.
Yeah, I'm looking right here in the I think this is on page 15 of that document that Humble got us. Point 46, BNOC operates a highly valuable service that provides incredibly detailed real-time visibility into mining operations. Second, Swan developed through testing proprietary hash rate optimization techniques for Bitcoin mining.
Yeah, Tarantula calls bullshit on that.
Yeah, exactly. I just... like, this goes back to Ulric's point, right? If there was maybe like an integration software or a dashboard that somehow automates that, right, for multiple units at once, which again would be based on past analytics data. I don't know.
Now they got some very fancy machine learning going in, and they put a lot of time into that. Then
they did talk about using AI for their mining project, right? When they start right at the beginning.
Did they talk about that? That could be some. Right, that could be interesting stuff. But even still,
AI like.
Aren't you just hearing the Flex Seal meme in your head with the guy slapping the thing onto the glass, right? Just slap some AI on it.
Yeah, and that's what AI.
Well, maybe
a
that
lot
was
of
their
AI
trading strategy. I forgot they were selling AI with something, but it might have been their like.
I'm sorry, that was it.
There's no sell button on a Swan except for if you use their AI trading strategy, and then that does the selling for you or something like that.
Yeah, they were doing some trading to develop potentially, I think, some revenue, maybe. But yeah, I think that this is an integration thing that I don't see any massive machine learning stuff. I think Shooter just talked about ASIC Boost 2.0.
Yeah.
And if I'm thinking about Boost, I'm thinking about the algorithmic way to potentially overclock or clock like a CPU or a GPU or an ASIC essentially efficiently to not blow your shit up or to maximize, whatever the rates are at the moment when it comes down to the temperature in the ground, when it comes down to like the kilowatts per hour, dollars over kilowatts per hour. So all those things can be easily calculated into a function that I just assume isn't built from the ground up. I just feel like it's an integration suite. Did they do some integration work? Do they have software engineers? Yes. Is it groundbreaking? I don't know. But again, that's something that they can play on if they stole stuff. How many man hours did they steal? If you have to embellish it, if you have to pump it up in order to say, like, to show the judges, I don't know if we were talking about this or if I was listening to someone else, but it's like, oh, it was actually who was the group? Bitcoin Bugle. Their intro to their breakdown was very interesting. They put in the consideration, like, you have to understand that when this lawsuit is written, it's written to an audience, and it's not only the judge, but it's to public opinion. It's to researchers in the future. Swan is establishing a precedent. Swan is establishing their reputation on this lawsuit because people are going to look at this. It's like, and they're going to use it as case studies. And so every word that they've used is strategic beyond just give me some money, I'm suing you. Again, it's a little bit of 3D chess, and we all know that the people that work at Swan, even the top of the food chain, they're smart at the 3D chess stuff.
Yeah, it's like the hell and rain fire. That's to pull on emotion and get people to be like, "Whoa, this is like huge!" Like, and I mean, that was the first thing I did when I saw that. I was like, "Is this a thing? Like, what does this actually mean?" Like, I feel like I know what it means, but is there another term that goes along? So yeah, I mean, it's definitely to play on emotion, and just as far as the BNOC thing goes, there are some things that were pointed out when I was kind of going through the document, and I had asked AI some additional questions. So what it had pointed out was lack of detailed evidence of trade secret theft. So the general accusations of trade secret theft The complaint claims the defendant stole proprietary information, including Swan's Bitcoin mining software, BNOC. However, there's no detailed presentation of forensic evidence, such as specific timestamps or logs, that definitively proves these files were exfiltrated for illegal use rather than as part of their roles at the company. So then there's also the intent behind the downloads. Many employees, including the defendant Monteleone, are said to have downloaded Swan's proprietary code or documents, but it isn't always clear whether the downloads were unauthorized or outside of their work scope. So this makes it very challenging to ascertain the intent behind these actions. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, no, that's I think that's very important. This kind of goes back to the whole smoke and mirrors thing, right? I personally have not been directly involved in this type of stuff, but I have been indirectly involved in this type of stuff from my normie job. And I can say that unfortunately in these types of situations, they can throw, and I'm talking about they, when I say they, I'm talking about Swan, they can throw all kinds of shade, right? Because they're the ones making the accusations. And I understand, I looked through and I saw that there was an email with Alex Holmes and I don't remember the other two people on that email chain, but in all fairness, that conversation, it's not as incriminating as it seems. And I'm not saying these people didn't do this, right? I'm not saying that this didn't happen, right? Because clearly there seems to be this divide and this break, and all of a sudden this Proton management has every single thing that Swan had. So there's clearly something that happened, but I don't know. A little bit sketchy.
Phil. So I thought I'd I thought I'd search Swan's Twitter for tweets about mining, and I came across what I think is a banger. I'm gonna share it.
Should be able to share, yeah.
How to do it on
yeah, I know. I didn't
contraption.
Yeah, right, hopefully I don't have to enable it because I'm not finding that right now.
Right, we'll try it.
Hopefully you could do it.
And
we do have some questions after
break
this.
everything, but you know.
No, it's okay. You're not going to break anything. But after this, we did get a question about their custodians, right? How they switched from Fortress to Backed, however you want to pronounce it, most recently. So we should probably talk about that as well, because that's now what. That was pretty recent.
That was announced a while ago.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Apparently, if I want a screen share, I gotta quit Chrome and come back. So, see you in a minute.
Yeah. Decision.
He just left. Pleb Underground live. Oh shit!
Right, that's how we roll. People just disappear. You can't share the screen. You're out. But yeah, I guess maybe until he comes back from that share screen, that whole thing that happened with the custodians. So look, this is probably going to be a hot take, right? There's nothing wrong with companies switching who their partners are. Okay, there's never that problem. That's not the issue. The issue is always communication, right? The issue is always transparency. So unfortunately, when you don't communicate and you're not transparent, then people get the wrong ideas, right? And they get concerned. That's really what it is. So I just feel like those types of situations, and again, right, obviously Prime Trust, we all know the issues with the guy, and I forget what his name is, Scott something, and all the weird stories.
Scott Purcell.
Thank you, Scott Purcell, and all that good stuff. So I mean, there was a whole bunch of shadiness there. So yeah, it was good that they moved, but again, I feel like if there was more transparency and more communication, there would have been way less backlash. It just looks terrible, when you're intentionally hiding something. That's the problem,
Are you talking about the custodian from Prime Trust to Fortress?
Dude, I've been back 2 minutes. Max are so fast.
No, I know. I was in the middle of a point.
All right. I know. You made a great point, sir. Let me pull this thing up. So,
did you know that you're sparkling today, Walton? Somebody
for like a half an hour. Some people are going to start to have seizures in the comments. Like all of a sudden, we're just going to start to get lines and dots. People aren't going to be able to type anymore.
All right, can you see this?
Can't see you.
Yeah.
he just.
Okay,
he's
can
just
you see my screen?
No.
No.
Hold on. Let me bring it onto the stage. Now we can. Oh, okay. Remove.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
You see it?
All right. There we go. All right.
All right. So August 29th. This is like a month ago. Swan tweets, "What's the most misunderstood aspect of Bitcoin that you wish everyone understood?" Someone called Zamir tweets, "Mining." Swan, love it, but that's a big topic. Any specific aspects of Bitcoin mining you think are most important? So, yeah.
Yeah.
Was there a punchline there?
Apparently, it wasn't like an important enough topic that for people to understand. Not even Swan themselves.
No, you can't put the Swan Twitter handle on Swan. The people running the Twitter.
Who's it on?
What do you mean? The Swan Twitter handle is how Corey spies on people that he's already like.
I don't want to be a dick, but like our Pleb Underground handles on us. So
yeah, but
their handles on them.
Yeah, but like
sounds like winners are picked.
No, this is just like poetic, right? This isn't like a big deal. This isn't like this isn't them like doing a canary. This is just poetic, like.
Oh, I got it. I see.
Yeah. No, that's right? More right. Yeah. No, the Swan Twitter is interesting, but there's another. There was someone who was mentioned something. Roman Stack Show said, "Yeah, the hardware is going to hash. Monitoring won't affect the output. Maybe monitoring for hashing miners, I guess, but nothing to boost the hash rate. It's just monitoring." That's right. It's not going to boost the hash rate, but you could potentially reduce the power going to the miners if it's more cost effective. Dollars in, dollars out effectively. Like you're not just going balls to the wall to get as many sats as possible. You want to make sure that you have enough money to pay the bills. And so that's what this tool would essentially help provide. But I'm just thinking like, those things, that doesn't sound like anything extremely smart or self-aware. It just feels like a algorithmic or even just functional. Simple inputs in, simple inputs out. Or simple inputs in and then simple outputs.
But I mean, like realistically,
unless they have their own firmware.
But think of it like this, right? This is something else you and I have discussed as well. So, okay, having individual miners, that every time you make a change to the core voltage, okay, you have to restart your miner. Humble, I know you have some miners. Like this is this is something that is known. You can't not restart it. Like an ASIC is actually quite simple. It doesn't handle that you're just going to change the setting and all of a sudden it's just going to take place. Like you actually do have to restart them. So I don't I don't understand where this incredible efficiency where the software would somehow manipulate, because at the end of the day, that's really what it is, manipulating the core voltage for efficiency, right? Per terahash or per gigahash or whatever it is. Again, I don't see how it's efficient to constantly be restarting all your miners. Like you're not submitting that many shares. So unless there's something I'm missing here, I don't know. Again, not an expert, just used to.
Also, like it's proprietary software that was made by the people that are stealing it, as far as I'm aware. Like it's one of these things where it's like, oh, it's owned by the company because it's made on company time, but like who actually made this? Who actually was running this thing? It seems like there was a sovereignty play that we will find out whether it was legal or not.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been a situation where somebody had this going for them prior to becoming an employee, and then they just kind of made it a little bit better and stronger. And so maybe they originated the idea, but then they used Swan's company time and computers, which makes it their property, right? So,
and that's the thing, like Swan,
that would help
Swan,
explain why they're blowing it up. Sorry, Ulric, but that would help explain why they're puffing it up, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, because it's so hugely important. I'm sorry, Ulric, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I mean, I think, remember, Swan is a marketing company. We in Bitcoin Twitter and have understood this. They're not Coinbase. You know, they're a storefront for acquiring Bitcoin. They're a storefront for all different types of other services. And this is another example of that, where who did he bring? He brought in Alex Holmes, and he reassigned Hafa Zagari to apply their expertise and knowledge of IT and the mining landscape to push this venture forward. But they're leveraging Swan's connections, Swan's branding, and you kind of have to say, if you're going to, like, again, I made videos for Swan Bitcoin. I put in all the work. I did all the editing and all the Premiere Pro stuff, and I uploaded it to Swan's YouTube, and it got 10,000 views, 15,000, 20,000 views. And then they let me go. I don't just get to take those YouTube videos with me. So it's like I'm leveraging their brand, their network, their fan base to get my word out. Those are the kind of things that, hey, if you're going to bring this mining deal under, use us and use our connections, that's the cost of doing business. That's how I see it. Again, maybe they saw it as different, especially Tether. If there really was a conspiracy, Tether's looking at Alex Holmes, Tether's looking at Swan, and they see Swan as the intermediary, the Bank of International Settlements. Like, what do we need them for? Let's go peer to peer, brother. And so they look for a way to get rid of the middleman, and it probably saved Tether a whole bunch of money working with Proton Management without the Swan label in the middle.
I think it's very well said.
I mean, it's a possibility that Tether didn't want to be associated with Swan because of maybe some issues that they knew they were having, and everything was going to go to shit, essentially. And so they don't want to go down with them. I mean, if you look at previous relationships and things that have happened in the past, that wouldn't be far-fetched, I would say. I'm not saying that's what happened, but I'm saying it's, you have to take these things into consideration. Why do people make the moves that they make? Why did these employees move? Why did they leave? Why did they decide to do this? There wasn't loyalty. That meant they're not happy. Why weren't they happy? What was happening internally that made them not happy? Or did they see something bigger that was going on that obviously nobody's aware of at this point in time? And that's why they left.
Probably both.
Possibly, yeah.
You also have to realize that we mentioned a lot of these companies. We mentioned River. Why isn't River having these concerns and questions? You see all these other mining companies, and they seem to have their ducks in order. They're not falling apart or having these major concerns in a bull market, by the way. Again, from what we know about, and we mentioned this before, and I'll reiterate it again, Swan, I see Swan as a kind of a federation of personalities sometimes. They bring in people that are there for their own incentives. And of course, we're all scammers, like Phil says. We're all there for our own incentives, but it doesn't necessarily feel like a full-fledged, wearing the company banner on your lapel company. You have these personalities that are brought in on stage at a conference, and it's like, hey, he's with us now. We all cheer. But then when the conference is over, you don't know what they're doing. We already made a few examples of that. And I think that when it comes down to the mining thing, I think Alex Holmes was one of those potential personalities. He's a very, very smart man. He's a very good businessman. And I've said this about him. I always analyze people like how I would play against someone at the poker table. And he is one of those guys I just naturally be aware of at the table. I feel like he's not the one to show it to he doesn't have any clear tells about what he's doing, what he's thinking. And he was one of Corey's closest friends. Like I met him going to San Francisco. I met him on a flight. It's like Corey. It was me, Corey, and two other guys, an investor in Swan, and I feel like one other person. And we went up to sit across from A16Z and talk to a bunch of these like we could see A16Z's building from the other side of this apartment building. And Corey's like, hey, that's A16Z over there. And it's like, let's throw rocks at him. I was like, what? That's A16Z? But we were like, it was basically a Swan meetup, a Swan salon. And we were meeting with these like high net worth individuals and just talking to them about Bitcoin. And Alex was there with him, and he brought a contingency of some of his close. Oh yeah, Dom Bay was there, so he brought a contingency of his closest LA buddies to go with him to have this event. Like we all flew up there, and like that was May of 23. So it's just kind of funny how sometimes the people who are closest to you can be potentially your most nefarious rivals, or even a backstabber, if this suit is true. And Alex was acting in a nefarious way. There is no one closer to him than there's no one closer to Corey than Alex when it came down to business ventures outside of the Swan umbrella. He was not a Swan until the mining venture started. Someone said this in a tweet. It's like a movie.
Yeah. Oh, it's very true.
Yeah. On this point. Oh, sorry, Humble. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was quickly just going to pull up Ron McKay, who's a longtime watcher to the show, man. Really appreciate it. And interesting comment here that goes along the lines of what Ulrich was talking about, right? There wasn't any sort of NDA, right? Because we're talking about Alex Holmes and his closeness and all that. And when you're looking through that, you're looking through the Swan documentation, I noticed that they placed a lot of the wording that they used in the NDA. And I do have some experience not only writing NDAs, but unfortunately signing them and having to uphold them as well. And I can say that especially when it comes to software, this stuff is very granular. So what I'm trying to say is that if their NDA was not on point and entirely granular, they might be fucked. Excuse my language.
Should have got Diddy's lawyer to do your NDA, guys. You got wrecked.
Oh man,
it's not looking too good for him either, right now. Anyways,
it lasts a good right now. Man. You want me to tell you a Diddy story? I'll tell you a Diddy story. I'll tell you all
what
a Diddy
just happened.
No,
I'll tell you all
I don't
a Diddy
want you
story.
to tell me a Diddy story.
Bro, real talk. I won't, man.
Did he try to take you shopping too?
15 years ago.
He took your virginity. That makes
15 years ago.
Okay, sorry. Let Ulrich tell his story.
It's crazy. Okay. I'm at the gym. I'm at 24-hour fitness. I run into a former buddy of mine, who I played basketball with in college. Bro said that he turned into a male stripper. He turned into a male stripper like in his late 20s. And I was like, yo, bro, what's up, man? It's like, this Hollywood stuff is crazy. I'm like, what? Like, what is that about? And it's like, let me tell you something. All these people, they're a bunch of freaks. Like who? And I'm like Diddy. Like, what do you mean Diddy? Like, well, he told me he invited me to his house. He had me go in a dark room with a couch covered with a sheet, candles all around it. And he basically paid me to have sex with his wife. And he would watch in the shadows. This was back that he told me this in 12 years ago. And I'm like, what? That's crazy. And I've known all this time that he was into that weird stuff that a decade plus ago, no one would think. It's like, oh yeah, that's just P. Diddy. He's successful. No, it's crazy.
50 Cent's been talking about this for a decade.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know how it's a surprise to anyone.
I know. Well, it's still because unless the media tells you this stuff, they don't like people. It just falls on deaf ears.
Ulrich, we have a question. We have a question. Somebody wants to know which wife it was.
Oh, someone else asked that as well. It was Cassie. Hello.
Who would have thought? I did not see the arc of the Swan allegations turning into the Diddy story. I did not see this arc, and in all fairness, like we've all spoken for many years at this point. Pretty good at predicting where our conversations go.
No, look, I think essentially what Ulric is saying is that Corey is Bitcoin Diddy, and the spooks are taking them out. Like, you have kind of cult-like origins, and you mess with the spooks, and your NDAs are not like watertight, like
I'm not going to tell you what he told me about Jamie Foxx. That's for another time.
Next time. Oh no!
Next time on Pleb Underground
destroy
Live.
The guy who played Ray so well. Come on,
he said something.
If you didn't ever see Ray Charles before, you'd think that was Ray. Oh, man.
He's talented.
It's funny because like Ray Charles did touch the sky, didn't he? With
maybe
what's his face with Kanye?
Did he?
Whereas Diddy's more like
Ray
touch
Charles?
this guy.
Oh gosh.
Okay, back to the topic at hand. All right, guys. So, all right, we talked about the NDA. I don't know if anybody has anything to add about the NDA, but I'm just saying, based on the wording that I saw, if it was vague, like the documentation showed, where they were like, stuff like you can't move software from here to there, like from where to where, and like who can't move this software, and like just a lot of the same way I'm explaining it vaguely is how vague those terms were in that paperwork.
Yeah,
so
very much.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody has anything else to throw into the NDA stuff, and then I guess we could move on to the next topic.
Dude, I mean, their employees will argue on Twitter ad infinitum that customer funds are segregated. Now that's fucking bullshit. There's no way there are separate UTXOs for separate people. They are segregated under the law, but all that means is that like if it all falls apart, that they get some sort of fiat amount maybe equal to whatever the numbers are on a screen, right? That there is not separate custody, so you can't trust what they say when it comes to kind of the details.
So this kind of actually touches on that new 12-hour window from Coinbase, right? Even though I know we're talking about Swan, but right, public company. All the ETFs are holding their Bitcoin there, and all of a sudden, right, this demand gets made. Why? Why do you not believe that they have your Bitcoin? Why do you not believe that they're doing what they say they're doing with it?
When do they have to show it? When do they have to show the keys? 12 hours after what?
I think it's from what I saw, it has to do with the withdrawal request. Right? They have like 12 hours to fulfill it. That's what I understood, unless somebody understood differently. But essentially, this was at the request of BlackRock.
BlackRock,
right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So why was BlackRock, and supposedly BlackRock got concerned because they heard rumors that Coinbase wasn't actually custodying the Bitcoin the way they said they were. Like, think about that. BlackRock's sitting there, Larry Fink's scrolling through his freaking Twitter feed. He's like, Coinbase isn't custodying our shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how else he would have thought that, because I believe these people do not just make requests and act on nothing, right? They don't just do this stuff on a whim. So I highly doubt it was just a tweet he was scrolling by. I'm actually looking right now for their NDA wording. I don't know if somebody has another topic that they want to talk about in terms of.
I do. I want to ask. Here's something to consider. Let's talk about the end game for this suit. It's like we have Swan that like is asking for damages. Is asking what are the ends to the damages that they can request. When you think about it, if all of this can be proved that, you know, Tether was manipulated or acted on the motives of this internal conspiracy. It's like, how much would Swan be potentially owed? I mean, when you think about, they had a conference lined up, you know, they had this business deal with Tether that was soiled. You have now a reputation that's essentially, even though it was longer than that, since last year when Peter what's his name was kind of associated with Swan. But you have all this bad publicity in association with this big mining thing, and then kaput, 3 months later. Just saying, like, how much can they sue them for? It's kind of crazy.
Well, and that's what makes this all very interesting, because you're talking about suing individuals. They're not suing Tether. They're suing these individuals.
And suing Proton Management.
And Proton Management.
Yes.
So,
but that's a new company, isn't it? Is Proton a new company? So what are you going to get from that? They know they're not going to get anything from that. So they're risking tarnishing their reputation by putting this information out there. They're not going to be getting any money. Nobody knew about this until they aired out their dirty laundry. So there's a lot of this that makes you kind of go, like, why is this happening? It doesn't really make sense. It doesn't make sense. Like, you can't say this is how much we could have made, because their mining business wasn't even in business for that long. So there's not a track record you can even go off of to say, well, this is how much money we would have lost because this is how much money we've made during this season at this time, or what have you. There's nothing there. So none of this makes sense. And we're talking about intelligent individuals here, that so far as we know, people who should know these things. So, that's where you kind of look at it from the lens of, okay, what is there something else going on here, right? And as Bitcoiners, we always do that.
It's
right?
Interesting. So here's it's not a lesson, but it's a reminder when it comes down to Austrian economics, who owns your reputation. And you don't own your reputation. I don't own my reputation. My reputation is based on how each of you individual people see me. How does Phil see me? How's Walton Humble? How's Roman, Bitcoin Shooter, all the people in the audience? How do they see me? And I can't control that. Now, people in the UK, they try to control that. What's his name? Went to court against Hodlnaut because of defamation of character. What's his name?
Pedro McCutt.
No. Craig Wright. No. And he went to court against Peter and Hodlnaut and all these people. But the catch is, it's like, I think what Swan, if Humble, you're right that they can't really get much money from it. What's the value of your reputation or manipulation of how people perceive you? And again, Swan still does want to go public one day. They still want to grow. And I think that potentially winning this case could influence the way people would perceive them, because it's like, oh wow, they actually were victims of circumstance, victims of nefarious actors, and people have a soft spot for victims. And so tie goes to essentially the person that I like the most, and people are going to like you if you are proven to be a good actor, at least in one instance. So I think that there is potential value, even if you don't get a cent, if you have a reputable court case outcome. It's going to weigh on people's decisions about you in the future.
It's reputation management, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Long-winded, I am.
Can we do reputation
I love it.
management ourselves?
What, Walton?
Something I want to share with you guys.
Hey, and while Walton's pulling that up, Torp said being a victim doesn't work well with Bitcoiners, though. Maybe the most base Bitcoin maximalist kind of individual sovereigns, but Swan's target audience isn't necessarily us. Remember, Swan's target audience is the Bitcoin investor, the speculator, and the venture capital, the people who are the NASDAQ or the NY Stock Exchange, whoever's going to help them go public. That's who their audience is. So us, it doesn't matter if like, oh, we don't think you're like legit anymore. It matters to the audiences that care about what the courts say.
Well, it's exactly, that's very true. I mean, it's reputation management. It's not for us. It's, hey, I didn't fail this business. Look at what happened to us. We got screwed over. And that's why our business failed. Let's say it fails, right? Like this is all, it's like, okay, this is the way things are trending. This is actually happening. And now we're going to have a scapegoat. So it doesn't look like we don't know what we're doing or we had any issues internally. Like I'm still a good CEO and I still have, you know, so much to offer a company in the future, and people should trust me and invest in, you know, I mean, those are the types of things that I'm looking at too. So I'm glad that you brought that point up, Ulric. It's not us.
Yes, ma'am.
I was going to throw in my tinfoil hat take for
I've
this
been waiting
one.
for this.
All right.
Yes,
So in listening to all of you, this is what I'm thinking, right? Okay, so there's two sides to the tinfoil hat take. One side is this. It's like an organized dismantling. So let's say this doesn't work, right? Let's just say that, you know, for whatever reason, this current path that they're on doesn't work. There's a lot of plebs, you know, who are invested in Swan, right? There's plebs that don't say that they're investors in Swan. There's a lot of Bitcoiners that have given Swan money, whether they want to say it or not. And interestingly enough, right, this would be a kind of, how could I say this? It's a show, right? And we're watching a show, and it's like, well, look, you know, you could see that things clearly didn't work out, and this is why it all fell apart. And you know, this is why your investment is lost, or whatever it is. That's one side of it. The other side of it goes to, I think it was Humble that made this point, or maybe it was Ulric, but essentially, in terms of perception, right, this could look good for going public, right? Because let's say they win this, right? Now, all of a sudden, if you're a large investor and you've been following along, you believe that they are in the possession of this incredibly valuable piece of proprietary software and right, special IP that could be worth something. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know what it is, but it's, I feel like somewhere in there is the truth, you know? It
sounds like a shitcoin, Phil.
Oh, let me tell you, I've got like all these points to substantiate what you're saying here. There's, I went down, I wore a couple tinfoil hats today when I was speaking to yeah, I did. Well, I mean, you can't help but like, this doesn't make sense. I mean, I think people who have been involved in legal battles understand that this, like, it just doesn't make sense. What you're going after, nothing. You're not going to get anything. And this is a marketing company, primarily. This is what they know to do. They know about public image. They know how important it is. And they're very good salesmen, right? So that's where my mind is going, like, okay, it just feels funny. And I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying these things didn't happen, but it just doesn't add up in my book.
I totally agree. All right, Shooter's got a question. Let's see here. How many blunders has Swan had? Is there any other Bitcoin-only company with as many? And I am just going to answer no. I do not think that any other company in the Bitcoin space has had this amount of quote unquote mishaps.
Petition to rename Black Swan event to Swan event.
Listen, you're stealing Nassim Taleb's thunder, Walton. Okay.
At the same time, when we think about their blunders, like, and I think this ties into what Tor Hodl is saying, where failed equals scam even to normies, right? Well, what is the definition of failed? And failed is essentially you're operating, then you're no longer operating. So going back to Nassim Taleb's, dynamic, if Swan could almost be seen as anti-fragile as well, where they aren't necessarily going away, even though they've had all these different marketing blunders or business operation blunders, or having to lay off a bunch of people and growing and having to lay them all off. At the same time, they're still around. So I would say that they haven't failed until they cease to exist, and the CEO and Corey Clipson is now doing something else totally different. There is no longer, Swan.com is an open, is an open website to be, or a web address to be bought by someone else. Until all that happens, they could, and they go public because the right funding comes around at the right time. All this will be history, and all that will be seen is like, hey, Swan refused to give up, and it's all a narrative that actually will benefit them. So we have to consider they haven't failed yet. They're actually showing themselves to be anti-fragile, which lends itself to the Bitcoin theme a lot.
I think that's a very good point. And
again, I know it sounds weird
about the market forgetting about it.
Yeah.
This is true. This is totally true. I think Ulrich's just
being nice because Corey invites him to events and things like, and he doesn't want to.
I know. I'm like, okay, there's one, two, three, one, there's all.
That's why I said I didn't want y'all. I knew I was going to get that.
Swan Groupies plus in Los Angeles, huh?
Oh my God. So if I don't know if you guys want to go through this, but I feel like there were some really great points that I got when I entered this information in and asked some questions to AI.
Yeah.
You guys are going to get sick of hearing me saying that, but I'm, when you take in a lot of information, you have to find a way to kind of like okay, well, I want to focus on this. I want to focus on that. It gives you the points, whatever. So if you guys want to go through some of this, I think it's very interesting when it came across. I asked AI, if you were a judge and you were presented with only this information, like what would your takes be, right? So there are some things, it's kind of interesting. I thought maybe I could read through a couple points and then we could talk about them if you guys wanted to. And if we want to progress, we can do that.
Absolutely. Let's dive into them.
I don't want to.
Let's dive into them a bit. Why not? I think so far we've done pretty good. We've covered, I think, all the points that we wanted to. So I think if it's good with you guys, we'll go through these points and then we'll wrap up the show. Unless there's more questions or something. But I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's important to note the question that was asked to AI. So I asked it a question. It said, if I were a judge and this complaint was the sole piece of evidence available, there are indeed some elements that might prompt me to consider whether the lawsuit could be a cover-up or a distraction from a larger issue involving Swan or even Swan and Tether. Here are some reasons for such suspicions. As we go through this, so you guys aren't thinking that it was like, oh, well, AI is only thinking that way because she asked that. I asked AI after I got done with this because it was just speaking from first person as if it was a judge. And you'll hear that in a moment. But I said, is it because I asked you the question the way I asked you to specifically look at these things that you only looked at these things, or would you have looked at these things and came up with these theories? And it said, no, I would have found these theories. So anyways, all right. So the first one, timing and sequence of events. The timing of the alleged rain and hellfire scheme coincides with significant ongoing negotiations, including the planned Series C fundraising round and the development of 2140 Energy. Again, it's 2140 in the complaint and 2040. Yeah. This raises questions about whether the lawsuit could be an attempt to deflect attention from failed negotiations, internal issues, or to maintain leverage over the departing employees amidst funding challenges. The speed and coordination of Tether's response, including the unprompted email, and we didn't discuss that yet, I don't think, right? So there was an unprompted email that was sent to Swan by Tether. So it's mentioning that. To distance itself from the resignations and the immediate notice of event of default suggests that the events were anticipated. This raises the possibility that Swan, or both Swan and Tether, may have planned or at least expected this situation, hinting at a preemptive legal strategy rather than a purely reactive one. So I don't know if somebody wants to find that. There is something in the complaint that mentions the email that was sent by Tether that was unprompted. It was regarding the employees, that they had heard that these employees had resigned, et cetera, et cetera. But okay. So two, the defendant's coordinated resignation. So the mass resignation is presented as evidence of a premeditated conspiracy, yet Swan appears to have had no internal measures or preemptive actions taken against the resigning employees. despite the claim that they had advanced knowledge of these plans. This lack of proactive response raises suspicions about whether the resignations were part of an orchestrated scenario that Swan might have anticipated or even facilitated to frame these individuals or to create a narrative justifying subsequent actions.
I found the part. I don't know if you wanted me to read this. It was point 100 in that allegations document here about how Tether's counsel sent an unprompted email to Swan saying that I understand that most or all of the Swan mining employees have resigned this morning. I've spoken with Tether and confirmed that these former employees were not encouraged to resign and have no existing arrangements with Tether. Correct. And this is Tether's counsel that sent this.
Preemptively, yes. Yeah. Prior to, yeah, it's crazy.
Unprompted. It claims. Yeah.
Well, wait, that's not preemptive. I thought all this happened on August 8th. That was the day after.
Well, according to this, it was August 9th that they sent this letter.
Right. It was the day after. It was literally the day after. It was a morning. It was like they all resigned on August 8th in the evening. And then
Swan says in the complaint, that if I remember correctly, Swan even says in there that it was not, it was, okay, you said it's 0.100. I've got to go back and look.
Early on August 9th, the Tether counsel sent an unprompted email.
Unprompted,
which means that they were in communication with the 8 to 10 people that resigned all at the same time on the evening of August 8th. Right. So those were sequential. They resigned. They told Tether, "We resign. We're out of here. Let's go talk." It's almost like, "Hey, I'm leaving my husband and I'm going right to my new man." And then, the new man's, brother saying, this analogy is going weird. Never mind. But you get it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my understanding was when I read that, my understanding was they sent it to Swan, but it's not like Swan reached out to them and said, "Hey, dude, this is what you're doing." It was like Tether initiated this conversation. So it was like unprompted, responding to something. They're just saying this, which is kind of.
Why would they send that except for another reason to hurry the dissolution of their relationship by reaching out, knocking on Swan's door saying, "Hey, I heard that all your mining people are gone. Where does that leave us?" And so I think Tether was, using the word complicit or in conspiracy with these people, obviously, based on how it's presented, to say, "Hey, these people, let's go start our own mining group, and we're starting it literally on August 10th. We resign on August 8th. You dissolve it with Swan August 9th. August 10th, we pick it up as if nothing happened." That's how I see it playing out based on how this lawsuit is written. But again, the lawsuit is written obviously by Swan for Swan's benefit. Alexander Dosick, he actually played with me in the 3-on-3 tournament. He's 6'10" and can really shoot the 3. Yeah. Okay. I didn't expect him to be in there. I'm sorry. It's always about me.
I love all the community building. It's such good community building.
Okay, Ulric. All right.
I feel warm and fuzzy.
All right.
Basketball's a shitcoin, but you're not ready for this conversation.
Yeah. I heard, and no, I'm not.
Let's see if you can get a slam dunk here, Ulric. Okay. We'll continue. If anyone else has anything to say. No?
Oh my God.
Any questions or comments?
Isai Tony is totally killing us in the comments. It's freaking hilarious. So he says this is classic Silicon Valley, and we're trying to figure out if you guys ever saw the show Silicon Valley. So I'm trying to figure out if Corey is Gavin Belson or this other guy named Big Head. So yeah, of course, anybody who never watched the show is not going to get any of these references, and it's too bad. But it's totally a show worth seeing. And yeah, Isai Tony and I are having fun with that one. But
so
what else you got?
No, go ahead.
No, we're ready for you.
You're ready. Okay. And again, I'm not going to defend AI. Okay, Ulric. So if you want to come at me, I'm not defending AI. AI is the judge here. All right. No. So I'm not going to be able to defend it. based on.
I'm just playing my role the best way I can, whatever my role is.
And yeah, it's just my comebacks are going to be limited in defending my judge. That's the AI. So here we go. All right. Timing and sequence of events. I did defendants coordinated resignations. Ambiguities and evidence of theft. Okay. The complaint provides vague descriptions of how the alleged proprietary data was stolen, with claims about downloading documents or accessing code, but lacking explicit and compelling technical evidence such as verified timestamps, device IDs, or direct traces to Proton. This makes me wonder whether Swan is potentially exaggerating or fabricating these claims to justify legal action, perhaps as retaliation against departing employees who were about to pursue their own independent ventures. If I consider that Swan and Tether had strong business motivations at stake, such as keeping control over 2040 energy, the lack of detailed forensic evidence might suggest that Swan is building a narrative to regain control over the employees and partners by framing the mass departure as a theft and conspiracy. Don't you love how it's like first person perspective here? It's like, if I, and it's like, oh, I almost asked it what it wanted to be called. Like, if you were to be called a judge, like what judge, what's the name? But I didn't end up doing that. I had too much to do.
Damn it.
I know. I will. I can. It's still in the thread. I can still ask it. Okay, so that wasn't.
What judge it'll pick?
Yeah, I know. Joe Brown, maybe he's in the
right. Like, is it going to pick a famous judge, or is it going to pick a comedy judge? Right, like from the show Night Court or something like that. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
I should have asked it to relay this information to me in that character. Yeah. Oh gosh, that would have been a lot more fun. Anyways. All right, so Tether's role and potential conflicts of interest. Tether's involvement, especially its rapid distancing from the Swan resignations, could indicate an attempt to maintain its public image or control the narrative, given that Tether was a major funding partner. This raises questions about whether the lawsuit is, at least in part, an attempt at Swan and Tether to control damage or distract from a failing business arrangement, ongoing internal disputes, or to shift blame for operational failures. The complaint states that Tether was not involved in encouraging the resignations, yet the swift legal and public actions might hint at coordination behind the scenes. This could indicate a strategic play to downplay Tether's involvement and make it seem neutral while orchestrating events that benefited both Swan and Tether by swiftly removing problematic personnel or distracting from other internal crises. Any comments there?
Yeah. There was that impromptu email from Tether. So that kind of totally debunks that whole point, even though I'm just saying, even though Tether, right, the AI has gathered that Tether is attempting to remain neutral. Remain neutral, part of that is you don't apologize before for screwing somebody over. Sorry for what's about to happen that I have no knowledge about.
Right.
What? It's kind of weird. Anyways, sorry.
All right. Anything else? No, nothing. You're so quiet, Walton. You're sparkling quiet.
I have something
it's like
else.
2 a.m. for him.
Well, then just do it.
12:30. It's 12:30. All right. Well, yeah, I was going to share my screen before, and then you guys, had something else to talk about.
Sorry, we kept going.
It was a good segue, but I thought, it was more important to kind of like finish the conversation about some company that I don't really care about. Before we move on to like talking about something more important, which is like, I will share my screen and we will discuss.
Okay. Share a screen. We're going to discuss, and then we're going to wrap up, guys.
All right. So
hold on. Let me pull it up.
Okay, someone's trying to scam my boy TC, and we're not going to have it, basically. I suggested to him yesterday that he put out a statement, and
it's good.
On the time chain calendar account. That says it has come to my attention that someone's created a time chain calendar rune token with the time chain calendar logo on it, and yeah, it's not associated with time chain calendar. If you do want to support the project, you can go to the site and click donate and send Bitcoin, not some shitcoin. The Infinity Scan was created by some guy called Mark Hoddle, And like typical shitcoin scammers, in a desperate attempt to try and legitimize his shitcoin, he tried but failed to bribe the person with a large chunk of the liquidity. TC obviously said no, and everyone around him is saying no. Yeah. Fuck shitcoins.
Yep. Fuck shitcoins. Fuck shitcoins is
wild.
right. I don't know. I don't really have much to say about that. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, and the fact that TC put out that tweet that speaks for itself, right? Everybody knows TC. The people that do know him, anybody who's spoken with him, I think can quickly figure out what he's about. And yeah, he is not a shitcoiner. So, you guys have anything to add on this?
I was trolling TC because I told him I would short fold when they went public.
Everybody's short fold, except for Will. Will's not short fold.
Of course
he's bullish. He's bullish. Take a look at his timeline. That's a good investment, even though I think you should just buy Bitcoin. All right. Anyways, guys, that's it. We are gonna wrap up. That does it. This is our first kind of like. I don't know what we did. It's like a Pleb Underground live discussion about the Swan allegations. Anyways, in the comments, let us know what you think. We definitely plan on doing more of these, especially around these types of specialty situations that kind of come up. So, does anybody have any last thoughts before we sign off? Nothing. All right, guys.
I'll go first.
Where do I get cool merch that Humble's wearing?
Oh, okay, fine. Yeah. Humble, where did they get your merch? There you go. Good job, Walton.
Walton, yours sparkles though, so people might be more interested in that. It's like this. It's very impressive. Yeah, the orangehabit.com. Right. Yes, exactly. That is where you can get merch like this. Is the orangehabit.com. That's awesome. That's it. Thanks for asking, Walton.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we got to add that. We're going to add that link in the show notes. Right now it's a live episode, so there are no notes. So yeah, those notes will be coming a little bit later on. And of course, somebody was asking about getting our t-shirts as well. Just go over to proofofinc.com and under collaborations, check out Pleb Underground. And I believe if you use the code Pleb Underground, it still works. You get 5.8% off. That's right, because it's the 58K gang that hosts that shit.
Do you guys have a hoodie?
We do.
Okay. It's hoodie. It's sweater weather, so that means hoodies are in, guys. So
true.
Might have to get one.
You're so much better at marketing than I am. Terrible at marketing. Anyways, guys.
You remember that? All right. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. Ulric, anything? Any final thoughts? You said you wanted to say something.
I was so happy with the audience today. It was a lot of conversation, a lot of contributions. Just felt like an awesome experience. I see there's still a lot of people watching now. Make sure to smash that like button, like an old quote that I used to hear. But I can't wait for the next time to do this. It was fun, and this is the Pleb Underground. See y'all next time.
Sweet. Walton, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm impressed with like some of these people in the comments. Like I'm gonna shout out Roman, Eastside Tony, and who else? There was one other guy that was going hard, Torup Hoddle. These guys were committed.
George as well.
And George to the comment section. Thank you very much. It always makes the show more engaging, and we're happy to answer questions you have or hear your comments. So please,
Shooter, Mr. Business, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys. And, thank you everybody for watching. Oh, go ahead, Humble.
And I'm not going to let you end. I'm just going to keep on interjecting every time you try to end this thing. I just wanted to point out that Eastside Tony did say that there's one person who did not hit the like button, and we're going to find out who you are. So you might want to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already.
Appreciate that. All right, guys. Catch you all next time. Peace.
See ya.
Fuck shitcoins.